Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Late Night Movie Service. My name's Diego.
I'm Joaquin.
And guys, the movie's out. The movie of the summer, Weapons, is out. And we both saw it. He's seen it twice. I've seen it once, but I would love to see it again. But for this video, we're going to be talking everything weapons. The themes, the characters, the plot, the story, what we liked, what we didn't like about it. And so yeah, without further ado, let's get into the summary. This movie has a character-oriented story structure wherein it has 6 parts to it, and each part revolves around a certain character. It follows Justine, the school teacher, Archer, the grieving parent, Paul, the police, the cop in the town, James, a local crack addict, Marcus, the school principal, and Alex, the kid victim of the movie. As you know, for those who don't know, this movie does follow kids who go missing from a classroom, all except for Alex, and this movie is essentially how all that unfolds. So without further ado, would you like to take us away with the part 1, Justine?
Yes. So, part 1 in this movie follows Justine. Justine is a school teacher, and she is scrutinized by the town over the disappearance of all of the children in her classroom except for one. She drinks all her feelings in the whole movie. You see that. She's at the bar. She's always going in the liquor store and all that. And during this, she attempts to look further into the disappearance. She kind of does her own little self-investigation after a lot of her attempts at answering her questions are shut down very quickly. But the more and more she digs into it, she finds that nothing is quite as it seems, as her investigation leads her to the one kid that didn't go missing.
Yeah, that didn't go missing.
Alex leads her to his house, and she finds out some creepy things.
Part 2, Archer. Archer is a grieving parent of one of the missing kids, Matthew. We see his guilt-ridden and strained relationship with Matthew as he works tirelessly to uncover anything and everything he can about the kid's disappearance, as the police aren't really helping all that much. And eventually he finds a pattern in the path the kids take when they leave the house, because, in the morning when they see the kids take off, they see him on their Ring doorbell cameras. And while he continues to look deeper into it, his investigation is cut short when he confronts Justine, the school teacher for his son's class. He finds her at a gas station, but their conversation's cut short when they see a little figure in the back, which we'll talk about later on, because right now we're going to cut to part 3.
Okay, so part 3 follows the character of Paul. Paul is Justine's ex and currently works for the town's police department. The police chief is his father-in-law, as we see, but he's currently unhappy with his wife, Donna. That's going to lead to some things.
Yikes.
Anyways, through his story, we see that he cheats on his wife with Justine. And
I shouldn't laugh at that.
Immediately before, takes his anger out on a homeless guy, James. We'll see how
homeless and the town junkie.
We'll see where he, comes into the story later on, but he punches him in the face.
After he sticks him with a needle.
And that's part 3.
Part 4 follows the aforementioned James. James is the town junkie, the town druggie. James is doing anything to make a quick buck. He starts off with stealing from cars, and then he soon directs his attention to house break-ins, maybe earn a little money, what have you. James breaks into Alex's house, the only kid that was left after all the kids from his class went missing. And when James breaks into his house, he finds that all of the missing kids are in Alex's basement. With that knowledge, he gets out of there and goes to the town pawn shop, to pawn off everything he found in the house and up until that point. And he sees a missing poster for all the kids and a cash prize of $50,000. So what does he think? He thinks he's about to get paid. Later on, we see Paul find James again. This is after James stuck him with a needle that first interaction. By now, Paul's been caught having cheated on his wife, so he's really mad. He's really angry. So he chases down James out of pure fury, pure anger, And that's when James tells him, oh, wait, I know where the kids are, as a bargaining chip. So Paul, the police officer, he takes James to the house, and Paul enters. James is waiting for a little bit, but when Paul comes back out, he's acting a little different.
In part 5 of the movie, we follow the character of Marcus, and Marcus is the school principal. And I honestly thought that his segment gave us a lot of information. It was really, really good and creepy. But the school principal, Marcus, does his best to follow the rules of the ongoing investigation, while also being there for his friend and coworker, Justine. He tries his best to talk her out of doing her own self-investigation. She wants to talk to Alex, but he tells her he's, been traumatized. Leave him alone. Let him do his thing. Let him recover mentally. But she ignores him and does it anyways. Even after finding some solid evidence at Alex's house, Marcus does his best to schedule a meeting with Alex's parents, but is met with a very suspicious Aunt Gladys.
Yikes. Ooh.
He emphasizes that it has to be Alex's parents and he needs to talk to them. Gladys instead shows up at Marcus's house and tricks him and his husband into performing a ritual with her. This was honestly the best part of the movie in my opinion.
This is so creepy.
It was really, really good.
Horrifying.
So, after she tricks Marcus and his husband into the ritual, no spoilers, we're not going to say how, but Marcus just becomes a mind-controlled zombie and attacks his husband and then runs out the door, runs down the street, and goes to find Justine.
Which is where we see who that figure was in the background for Archer's part when we see the principal Marcus come in and attack Justine and Archer. In part 6, the last part, Alex. This one reveals it all. Alex is shown as just a regular kid who's getting bullied at his school. He's getting bullied by Archer's son Matthew, nonetheless, which I think speaks a lot to Archer and Matthew's relationship. Their father-son dynamic in the movie.
Kind of like a subtle backstory, Maybe Archer isn't the best father he seems to be.
Soon thereafter, his Aunt Gladys shows up. And she is not as she seems. She's a dying old woman. She's frail. She has a wig. She has some weird knickknacks and trinkets with her. And one day, when Alex comes home from school, he finds his parents kind of like in a zombie state. Their minds aren't necessarily there. That's when Gladys lays down the lore. She's like, hey, you're going to do what I say, or else I'm going to kill your parents. Simple as that. So, Alex has to grab an object from each of his classmates' belonging so Gladys can perform a ritual on all his classmates, which is how the kids disappear and end up in his basement.
After the events of the movie happen, Justine and Archer get patched up and Archer shows her the map he created, which shows the paths of the kids and how they all align. Justine notes how it aligns with where Alex's house is. They all kind of meet in one common area. So, of course they go there to the house.
Yes, of course.
Of course they go there to the house. And they're met with a hostile Paul and James. And elsewhere in the house, Alex is also being pursued by his parents. And rather unfortunately, Justine is forced to kill Paul and James both. Eventually, Archer comes across the kids, but is captured and manipulated by Gladys to kill Justine. However, Alex manages to get away from his parents long enough to perform a ritual on Gladys and send the kids after her, which results in probably the best on-screen movie death of this year.
Honestly, yeah, valid.
And that's it. That's the movie. That's the summary. Now, we very much enjoyed this movie, and of course, with the director like Zach Cregger, not everything is just surface level. The characters, their decisions, their actions. Whenever a director also writes the film, you know that there is a bunch of hidden layers and meanings into it. So, let's get into the character analysis, right? Oh, forgive me. Let's get into the character analysis.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Justine Gandy. What does Justine Gandy have to say? What do you think what is her character trying to say? What is it telling the audience?
I'll let you take the lead. I feel like you have a lot to say about her.
So Justine is presented as a morally human character. She's very human. She's not an upstanding citizen, this courageous leader through these dying times in this town. No, she handles this situation probably like how anybody else would handle it. She makes a few douchebag decisions, as we see her story unfold and as we see...
Not the smartest move.
Not the smartest. She she's very scared. She's antsy. She feels like walls are closing in on her. And the only way for her to, feel better about these things is to turn to drinking. Oh, a humble little school teacher in her free time just loves to chug alcohol, loves to chug,
Don't they all?
what was it, vodka by the bottle. But the movie also showcases her true love and passion towards teaching and the school children. Although she doesn't make the best decisions, you can tell that she has a big heart, and overall she wants to help these kids. She wants to figure out where they are. She wants to get to the bottom of it.
I was gonna say, I love the way her character is presented because, growing up, we're told that our authority figures are the people that we're supposed to look up to. They're the people we're supposed to model ourselves after. And I love how this movie treats Justine as human, It shows her with her flaws. It also shows her with her pros and what makes her a great character. I think that says a lot to society, but I think it says a lot in that these teachers and all that, they're not perfect angels. And I really like that about her character because she's not perfect. She doesn't make great decisions, but she's human. She's very, very human. And I think that is the best aspect of her character.
Yeah, I think her character also goes to show not only with her personal beliefs and her personal decisions she makes, but I think her character is a perfect reflection of how, modern day society, modern day thinking, how we put a lot of pressure on teachers. I think teachers have a tremendous responsibility and a huge job to take care of. And for a lot of the times it feels like, just like with Justine, walls are caving in on them. Especially during a huge tragedy like this. I mean, people immediately look to the teachers. What are they going on? What are they teaching them? With a lot of things nowadays with mass things like that, immediately people look to what was going on in the classroom. What books are they reading? What is the teacher showing them? It's all that same thing. I think it's a very, very genius writing, and I really like how they use her, character as an example of that.
And I love how she's kind of like labeled as like a witch, like this modern day witch, because they say, she took a kid home, even though it's not allowed, the kid missed the bus. It shows that she cares, but I think it's really cool in how it speaks to how a lot of like adult kid interactions are viewed as like really taboo, like anything, just because of the horrible things that have gone on between adult and a kid throughout the years. Literally anything, any little intimate moment an adult and a kid shares is automatically viewed as, let's look into it, let's be cautious, and I really like how they showed that side of that character.
Yeah, and it just goes on to the pressure she's put under, where at the end of the day she wants to do what's best for these students and she wants to help them, but there's guidelines. People, it's not as simple as, oh, I'm helping out a student. There's many more layers to it, like Shrek.
I love Shrek.
All right, so we just covered Justine's character. I think, also, before we move on from Justine, I was not a huge fan of, what is the actress's name? Please remind me.
Julia Gardner.
Okay. I wasn't a huge fan of her. I thought she was a little annoying, clips of her in Ozark and all that. But she completely sold me in this movie. Oh my God, she's amazing.
And the prelude of us seeing Fantastic Four right before this and showing her as kind of
the
like
Silver Surfette.
The Silver Surfette.
The Silver Surfette.
Yes.
How could you forget that?
How could we forget the Surfette?
She was wonderful in that one.
It wasn't wonderful. It was fantastic.
Fantastic.
Ball.
Okay, so moving on. Part 2 of the movie, it follows the character of Archer.
Archer Graff. Yeah, he's the father of one of the missing kids,
Matthew.
And his character acts as a metaphor for tough love. As during a dream sequence when he, visualizes Matthew in his bed, he tells him that, I should have told you. I always wanted to tell you. I'm so sorry, but I love you. I really do love you. But
right before he says it, it cuts
to
probably the most terrifying jump scare I've seen in a movie this year so far.
Gladys is in the bed.
For a long time, I don't think a jump scare has really f***ed me up like this one did. It was really, really well.
It got you again on the second watch, didn't it?
It's still, all of the jump scares got me, even on the second watch. Like, it's so well made. But I think it's really good. It goes to show his guilt, and it kind of shows why Matthew, through Alex's part, we find out Matthew's a bully.
Yeah, why he's bullying Alex.
Why he's such a little shit.
Yeah.
It's because his dad is over here, can't even say I love you to him.
Yeah. He doesn't give him the time of day. So
No.
what does he do?
And in Archer's part, we find out that, what is he, like the head of a construction company?
Yeah, and he's like messing up the orders. He like slips up. He gets the wrong color paint and stuff like that.
Yeah, we see the toll it's taking, on his mental health and even his job, where it has him in such a disarray where it's even leaking into his professional life.
Yes.
But yeah, in Archer's part, we see him paint the witch, the witch label on Justine's car with that red paint.
And I really like the part with Archer's character where we see so much guilt come from him, Of course, in that dream sequence, he's like, I know, I wish I told you, Matthew, sooner. I wish I told you love you. I love how that stands as such a striking metaphor. And honestly, I think it's the best metaphor of the film, where Archer, he didn't get to say goodbye to his kid. And I know a lot of parents of, not to get too serious here, but of school victims, they just wish they could say goodbye to their kid one last time, And I love the fact how this is trying to act as a wake-up call for those kind of parents, It's like if you're sending your kid off to school, in today's society, there's that small chance that they're not going to come back home that day. So I love how his character represents, just the outcry. Just tell your kids you love them. Share your feelings with your kids. Don't hold back. You don't know how much time they have left with you or you have left with them. And I love that. I love that so much from his character and how that showcases, I know a lot of people, they had some complaints where it's like, why didn't we see other parents' POV? I'm sure they were struggling too. It's like Archer's character is the best one, I'm sure, out of all of them. He represents pretty much all of those viewpoints, and he kind of just summarizes all the parents together. So I didn't think we really needed another one. His character did it all,
Yeah, his character really did. And what's so great is, so in interviews leading up to the movie, Zach Cregger said that the movie isn't a metaphor for like school and stuff like that. But I forgot who said this great quote, but it's, whenever you write and direct a movie, you make whatever you think the movie's going to be. Whenever it comes out, the audience then tells you what the movie is. So we know Zach Cregger made this movie, I guess, as a metaphor for grief, but for his friend, dear friend.
I'll talk about that in a minute because I have like a fun little thing about that. But
let's get into that. But in a minute. But although he made it, I guess, as a way to express his grief for his friend, the same way Archer did, the audience sees something else. I mean, I think that shows like how good of a writer he is, though, to where it can take on these numerous layers. So another fun fact about this script is Zach Cregger meant for every one of the characters that the movie follows to be a representation of trauma, I guess, or how people act in trauma.
You mean each 5 of the adult characters?
Yes. Featured on the movie's poster? Anybody catch that? The 5 kids represent the 5 adults in the movie? Anybody? Anyways, but it's kind of cool with, as we get into each character, just keep in mind that every character's reaction and the way they act in this movie, it represents how everyone might handle trauma or grief differently. Kind of the stages and how something traumatic can push someone to do these things.
Then we get to part 3, Paul Morgan. Paul Morgan is a cop within the town, and I love how his segment, it isn't, he has no direct relationship to any of the people involved. He has no kids of his own that attend the school that were in the class. But his character represents what law enforcement has to go through when they face such a tragedy as this. They have to deal with all the grief. They have to deal with all the turmoil that everyone's going through. And it's just so, consuming. It's so deprecating just to be faced with this, you should be doing more. You should do this. It's all very personal stuff. Because if something, if something's not happening that someone wants to be done, it's your fault. It's your fault specifically. They go after you. It's not, oh, the department should be doing more. It's, why aren't you doing more? You're representing this department, this thing.
Yeah, and it shows, even though the detectives are doing a lot of the heavy lifting with a situation like this, even just being a police officer, if you're, like with Paul's conversation with Justine, how Justine asks, how's work? And he goes, it's whatever. Very short. Work is work, it's whatever. Yeah. And she kind of speaks for the town in this little moment of dialogue, but she says something along the lines of, oh, like whatever. There's missing kids. There's 17 missing kids. I hope that the vibe at the station isn't, oh, work is work, it's whatever. I hope you guys are working hard. I think that, that shows where even just being a simple police officer, you have nothing to do with this situation. You're just, surveying
You're just doing
the
the job.
Doing your job. Still somehow like you're the issue. Or
yeah, if the kids are still
pressure.
aren't found, then you're the issue. You're the problem why they're not found yet.
Yeah, exactly. And yet again, I think it also shows how, police officers are supposed to be these upstanding citizens within society. They're supposed to be the role models, figures that kids and people look up to. But he's kind of a douchebag. He's a bit of a idiot. And it also goes to show how in tragedies like this, it's hard not to think, but of the Uvalde school where the police officers just stood outside of the school for 77 minutes. They didn't do anything. Kind of like with Paul, where it shows his kind of, a day in the life of
where he's
him
just
on the job.
He's so drained,
And he's just out of his element. I mean, the whole time, it's like, this guy's a officer.
Yeah, and it takes a local crackhead to get him to switch tones and us to see some color from the character. He's such a dull guy, and then it's just when that stress builds up, it takes just like I said, the local tweaker, the character named James, to just send him over the edge. And I think,
and even that, whenever I don't know, this is such a great acting job on, what's his name again?
Alden Ehrenreich.
Yes, I just didn't know how to pronounce his name. Thank you.
I love his name. It's really fun.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool name. But
Alden Ehrenreich.
Han Solo.
And the guy from Oppenheimer.
Oh,
and Ironmonger's son from Ironheart, the show.
How could you forget?
Did you watch Ironheart, the show?
No. But even as he's chasing down James, such a great attention to detail in the acting. He has such this adrenaline pump. Like, he's not used to his job. He's not anywhere capable for, what the job asks of him. But as he's putting on the handcuffs, he's shaking. He's like, you all right there, man? Yeah. All right, let's get up. And he even sounds scared too. Like, he's not sure of what to do.
And we see his slip-ups, of course. At his first encounter with James, he punches him because he gets accidentally stuck by James's needle. So we see little things.
And then he forgets to
turn off the car cam. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the car cam. And then oh shit, and he unplugs it and immediately goes to the chief. And
he has to go to his father-in-law and be like, oh, I messed up. So we see little instances where he slips up, where the stress is getting to him. But I think the biggest slip up is, of course, when he meets his ex, Justine, the school teacher, at the bar. He tells him that him and his wife, Donna, are not happening. They're on a break, which is completely false. But he does it. He does what he does. He goes home.
Breaks his sobriety, too.
Breaks his sobriety. He goes home with Justine, and they do the deed. Only for his wife, Donna, to get home early the next day and find out just exactly where he was staying the past night, what happened. And we see that this is his breaking point, the worst thing, his wife found out that he cheated, so he avoids eye contact with his father-in-law at the station because of course she told her dad. And it all culminates in the second interaction with him and James, where he tries, he just the sight of James, not even that anything James is doing, he just gets in his car and just speeds after James. And he arrests him. James, that's the part where James tells him, hey, I know where the kids are at, this, that, and the other.
Well, it just shows him speeding off, and then it cuts.
Yeah, and then it cuts to James's part, and then we see that that's the part where he is trying to bargain with him. But yeah, I really like how Paul, like I said, he's not directly attached to anyone who was affected by the tragedy, but it shows how someone who's not directly affected, how much this can still just weigh on them, just as a member of the community, just as like a enforcement officer, how he's just racked with this stress. I'm not defending him by any means. I mean, his character is still a dick, but it's a nice showcase of how someone who is meant to be the big protector, the big enforcer of, law, truth, and justice in this situation can fall short of that.
Yeah, they're just completely incompetent. It just shows how, where you would think they're working hard or
Hardly working.
They hardly working at the station. Okay, so next up in the movie is the character of James, the junkie.
The tweaker.
So
He's phobic.
he is phobic.
He's phobic.
I'm phobic, man. But James, what does his character say? What does it mean? I think with what you wrote is genius. I didn't see it this way until I saw it.
Really? You didn't see it like that?
No, I didn't. But his character is meant to show how people are these leeches, how they're vultures on tragedies. So just like Paul, James has no connection at all to this tragedy. He is simply just a drifter in the wind.
Which is funny because when he first broke into Alex's house, I thought he knew exactly where he was going, and I thought he lived there. My first watch, my only watch,
older brother.
I thought he was the older brother and was coming home and was going to be shocked to find out, mom and dad aren't the same, like what's going on with them. But no, he's just a passerby that just so by chance happened to choose that house to break into.
Well, he noticed up front that the newspaper, it was piling up.
That they weren't home.
Yeah. Nobody's home. Let's try my luck with this house. But it just goes to show how people use these horrific situations, these tragedies, to profit off of. He sees the poster of the 17 missing kids.
But
$50,000 reward.
He doesn't think of the kids. He thinks
ding, ding, ding.
The money.
Exactly.
Which it's portrayed in the movie as a very funny scene as he goes, I know. I saw those kids.
Because when he's trying to break into a house, it's raining. He's like, let me try my luck. Find some shelter.
He finds Willow on DVD.
Oh, shit, Willow.
I love Willow.
But, as when he's in the house, after he breaks in, as he's looking at the movies, finds Willow. In the reflection of the TV, he sees the two just like zombified parents under the spell of the witch just on the couch looking forward. And immediately he's scared. He's snapping at their faces, trying to get their attention. Nothing breaks their stare. But upstairs you hear a loud thud. That catches his attention. He's like, what's going on here? But I think the witch soon finds out, in her little spider web, she senses that James is in there. And as James goes to steal, what is he stealing? Like forks and knives?
Yeah,
and
silverware.
The parents are triggered.
They wake up and they chase him out of the house.
And he runs out. But, he runs out to go pawn the stuff, and there he sees the poster, and that's when the light goes off.
Yeah.
So then you see him go. You see, like, the gears in his head turn. Oh, I'm going to go call the cops. That's $50,000 reward.
$50,000.
Meth I can buy.
Yes.
So he gets high one more time, build up the courage, goes to the police station, gets, attacked and followed by Paul.
Yes.
Immediately they get in a high-speed chase. Sticks Paul with a couple more needles in the face, but he tells them, I know where the kids are.
As a bargaining chip, yes.
Yeah, he's about to get his face blown off by Paul, but then, he saves his ass because he knows where the kids are. Takes Paul to the house. Paul goes to investigate. You see the door open and dark, you see darkness in the house. Paul enters in.
And just runs straight out to James.
Well, no, the door closes and then it cuts. Right. James is in the police car. He's in the back seat waiting for what we would guess hours and hours.
Because it goes from day to night.
Yeah. But then Paul comes out, immediately just beelines it towards the cop car. Yanks James out, from outside, pulls him into the house. James is yelling, help, someone help me. And then it cuts.
And I'm glad that you noticed my viewpoint on James, because like you said, like I feel like every character in this has to have a purpose, and I didn't really get James's purpose until I actually thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and like you said, when I wrote this down, I was viewing it from his perspective and how he really didn't care about the kids or finding the kids. He cared about himself first. He cared about the money, but I also think he's the victim of the story in a way. Of course, people who with drug addictions, they're all victims, right? In their own right. But I also want to highlight here how the tragedy of them, as they're labeled the rejects of society. We see, because Paul's having a bad day earlier when with his first encounter with James, and he gets stuck by James's needle, that he punches James, right? Just out of pure anger. And I think it shows how these rejects are often the punching bags of society,
Yeah, of course.
They're trash, they're garbage, they make our jobs harder. So therefore, them, I can do what I want with them. No one's going to care, And I think it's really interesting how we see this perspective of Paul and James. They're kind of, they're on two sides of the law, but yet they're more of the same.
Yeah,
they're
they
both
really are.
They're both dicks, but they're also both victims of their own making. Like they
Both are addicts.
both are addicts of their own right. They're both in the position they are today because of their own actions and own choices. And while of course they do have that sympathy card that I'll give them credit for, where what they're going through isn't easy by any means. We do lead our own lives with our own choices, and they're characters that have made the wrong choices throughout the movie.
So the next character, Marcus.
Andrew Marcus.
Andrew
Marcus is his last name.
Andrew Marcus.
Andrew Marcus.
I think his segment is probably
It's wild.
it's super wild. I think I really enjoyed everyone's segment, but
Yeah.
Marcus's segment really stands out. But it's very clear his character is the mediator throughout
Yes.
throughout all this chaos, all this panic, all of this grief. He is the great mediator.
He has to play the middle ground throughout it all, He wants to be there for his friend Justine, the school teacher, but he has to discourage her, don't get into personal, don't talk to Alex, don't get mixed in with the investigation.
Don't follow him home.
Please don't follow him home. What does she do? She follows him home. But he has to play the middle ground, because if he sides with the more emotional side, the more human side, Justine, cops are going to find him. Hey, you encourage this, it's basically you lose your job.
And he's also, he's the face of the school. It's a bad look on the
Yes.
school when you have teachers following students home and all that.
So he has no other choice but to play the middle ground.
And I think with most principals, they would probably fire the teacher on the spot for something like that. But he, as you say, he's very sympathetic. He's a very sympathetic character. He's trying to help everyone out. He understands that there's a lot going on, but he's also trying to keep the peace. He's trying to keep people at bay. At the beginning of the movie, whenever they're having the parent-teacher meeting, and Archer, he starts the fire, and I want to hear what Justine has to say. She's a teacher. And after, as they're rushing her out, all the parents are following her. We want answers.
Yes.
He's the barrier between her and the parents. He tells her, go straight home, be safe. He's pushing people away from her. He's a very, very, good character. He has a good heart, but he understands that, you have to keep the peace.
You have to play in between the lines. You can't
Play it smart.
Yes.
But
it sucks because it's that path, that's that mediator path that leads him and his husband to their ultimate demise, as
when Aunt Gladys shows up.
When Aunt Gladys shows up, because like we said in this, as we were summarizing the movie, in order to kind of, appease Justine, she's like, please, talk to Alex's parents. All right. He makes a meeting with them, but only Alex's Aunt Gladys shows up. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I have to talk to his parents. So she's like, oh. And of course, as the villain of the movie, she's like, well, I'm caught. He has to talk to the parents who can't talk. So she shows up to Marcus and his husband's house right as we're about to dig in to the 7 hot dogs, which I'll talk about the 7 hot dogs here in a minute.
He has his mouth all open. I love that part. That's so.
But Aunt Gladys shows up, and I love this scene. You know, it just goes to show people who have a complaint with this scene, just truly like get out of here, because they're like, oh, there's stupid decision. He let them into their house. It's like she gave him. If you notice the movie, she gave him zero time to think. She's constantly saying, this, that, and the other. She's, even when she's in their house and she's doing like a bunch of like weird stuff, it's just like she's playing the victim card. She's constantly playing the victim card. It's hot outside. I need water. I'm
about to pass out.
I'm a helpless old lady. She gives him zero time to comprehend the weird stuff she's doing. When she gets a bowl with water, she pulls out, her weird stick that she uses to do the ritual on, she clips his husband's hair, and that's when, she turns Marcus into the weapon, as I like to call it. What she did with all the kids, as, she controlled them all to go to the house, right? Now she controls Marcus to kill his husband. So, and of course, I'm sure you have already figured this out. Marcus is a gay character, but guess what? This movie isn't trying to shove it down your throat. This movie isn't trying to be like, hey, guess what? He's gay. He just happens to be gay.
I also saw someone say that scene was homophobic.
How? That he killed his husband? But basically, he kills his husband because his husband's a witness to the ritual. So, after that, Gladys sends Marcus to go after Justine, which is what leads us to where Archer's part left off, where they're talking at the gas station.
And I think Gladys sends Marcus to kill Justine because Justine saw something she wasn't supposed to.
At the end of Justine's part, we see her, see like the parents in that zombie-like state, and I'm inclined to believe that Gladys like saw her outside of the house because
Gladys knows.
She saw her outside of the house because she made a loud noise. So she noticed Justine, and she even asked like which parent, or not which parent, or who had this worry, that which caused Marcus to want to meet with the parents, and he won't say, but she knows. So
gotta take that bitch out. That's what Gladys is saying.
Gotta take her out.
Gotta take that bitch out. So
she sent Marcus after her, and it's probably the movie's like the grand opus scene. I think the end is in that kind of same thing in its own right, but this scene is like, oh my gosh, like in the theater at the end of Archer's part, when we see Marcus running towards him, I'm like, oh my gosh, and then it cuts and it's like, oh darn. But then we have to go through Paul's part and we have to go through James's part before we can resolve why Marcus was there.
The movie makes you wait.
Movie makes you wait, which at first I was like, but now it's like, it builds that suspense, because all throughout Paul's part, all throughout James's part, I was shivering. I didn't know why I was shivering, but now I know it's because I was awaiting when we reached that moment. But when we get to that part, Marcus attacks Justine. Justine, luckily, is able to get out
with the help of Archer.
Archer isn't an asshole. He's gonna help the lady who's being attacked.
Yeah. Even though he doesn't like that lady and he's harassing her in that moment, he still sees someone in need, and that also goes to show his character. He helps her, but eventually Justine gets in her car, speeds away. Marcus still
is running after her, and
with his eyes all popped out.
And we see from Archer's POV as Archer tails Marcus and Justine. Just as Justine's on the road, Marcus is running after her. Boom! Boom! Boy! That gives 5 big booms. Boom! 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 Boom!
He's
ran over
everywhere.
And we see like the driver that like is like a little old lady, not a little old lady.
No, it was like a girl, just like a young girl.
And she's like, oh my gosh, like she just killed a man. Like his like you said, his brains are splattered on the road.
Those effects were really good. Not a lot of movie effects these days are good enough for me to be like, hey, what the like, what the hell? This one, seen it in theaters in the big old IMAX screen. Great attention to detail. You see little jaw bone chunks are all around the road, brain matter. You see his eyes all,
and it's just like, oh dude, like this very nice character, this character that was forced to play the middle ground, had him and his husband both had just one of the most gruesome fates of the entire movie.
It's terrible, it's awful shit, but very good. All right, let's get into it. On to the next character, Aunt Gladys.
I know you have a lot to say about her, so take it away.
So the next character in the movie is Aunt Gladys. Yeah, there's a lot to say about her.
She doesn't get her own segment, but I put her own segment on here because she has so much to talk about her. And I only have a few things to add. I think you can pretty much say everything I'm thinking, so just take it away.
So with Aunt Gladys, I even noticed this while watching it for the first time through my first viewing, and it's even more apparent through the second viewing. And I can't wait for people to notice this as they watch the movie again, and the rewatches take place. But throughout this whole movie, there's a lot of background information. Some of that background information is being Parasite,
Marcus
in the classroom.
In the classroom, Justine is teaching the kids about
Different types of parasites. The 5 types of parasites. The 5 types of parasites. The 5 adult.
ball.
Anyways, there's that. During the very good hot dog scene with Marcus.
I love the context of that. The hot dog scene.
The hot dog scene. God, they look so. Didn't that tray look good? Didn't that? Me, dude, that tray looks so good. So, but in the background, they're watching a documentary about parasites, and they're talking about a cordyceps parasite in that one.
The Last of Us reference.
Yeah, Last of Us, yes.
Josh Brolin was supposed to play Joel,
It's all connected.
but it went to Pedro Pascal. And guess what? Pedro Pascal characters in this movie was supposed to be Josh Brolin's, but that went to Josh Brolin after the strikes. See how it's all connected, man?
The 5 adults.
5 adults.
The 5 Pedro Pascals.
The 5 Pedro Pascals.
So, it's very obvious with Zach Cregger with his interpretation of this movie, with what his meaning is supposed to be, is a take on how alcohol abuse can take over a family and destroy it from the inside out, and kind of with grief and all that. But you see a lot of addicts in this movie. Justine has a very noticeable alcohol issue, especially with the way she processes her feelings.
Archer's kind of addicted to his work and
He tries to drown,
won't give his son the time of day.
Exactly. He's addicted to his work. He drowns himself in work, and that leads to him and Matthew having a very strained relationship.
Paul also has an alcohol addiction, just like Justine, and of course, James's whole thing is addiction.
Yeah, he's just
He's a crackhead.
a drug addict. What is
Marcus is a sweethart. He's not addicted to anything.
He's addicted to hot dogs.
He's addicted to hot dogs and love.
He's addicted to hot dogs. I'll say that. But he's addicted to.
And they both have the matching Mickey Mouse shirts on.
God, you think about that beginning scene and you're like, that's so wholesome, man. This is good shit. Like, this is so amazing. God, Aunt Gladys just the whole. Anyways, Gladys kind of shows how she's a representation, I guess, of substances, alcohol, how it can be let in a simple, just, Aunt Gladys, my mom would let her stay at her house. She can stay with us. Oh, a couple drinks won't hurt. Let's.
The parallel.
It's okay. I'm feeling bad. Let me just have a couple. Next thing you know, just like that, takes over and just corrupts from the inside out. And not only in that house, but it also affects others within a small, tight-knit community like this, a small town. Something like this can spread and everyone is affected.
Yes.
And it shows how, whenever you struggle with abuse, substance abuse, how it's not just yourself you're hurting. It's others. It's
Everyone around you.
Yeah. Jinx, everyone around you. But there's also so many more layers to Aunt Gladys. That's just being like the obvious. But I noticed someone pointed out on TikTok, I can't remember, but how Aunt Gladys wears a pin with all of her outfits, and it's a flower. And whenever Aunt Gladys is at home, no makeup on, or no wig on, it's like dead or it hasn't bloomed yet. And whenever Aunt Gladys is in her colorful outfit and her wig and all that, and her makeup, it's a bloom, like the flower pin is bloomed. That was a great detail. What else? Are there anything else you have to say about Aunt Gladys?
I will say Gladys is a very interesting character. Of course, Gladys is meant to represent evil of this movie. I also think there's a parallel to that with the dreams that Justine and Archer kind of receive, where they're kind of the only two that are looking for hints to clues to lead them to solution. And with Justine's dream, what was her dream?
So Justine's dream was her walking through the school hallway. It's all dark.
and she sees Alex.
She sees Alex
with makeup on.
Gladys's
and
makeup.
Gladys's makeup, which is hint number 1. Hint number 2 is when she thinks she, wakes up in her own house. She looks up to the ceiling. One of the movie's best jump scares. She's on the ceiling.
Me, that is terrifying.
I can't wait till when the Halloween season arrives and people start making like little like decorations, and people make like a Aunt Gladys like a fan cover, a chandelier or something like that.
Get that away from me,
dude. That's horrific. And then in Archer's segment, he gets led out of his house, kind of like following like Matthew's path outside of the house. He gets led. What does he get led back to his house, or
he gets led back to his house?
He gets led back to his house where he sees a huge gun appear over this house with the number 217, which is the time all the kids disappeared. People have their own interpretations of the gun. Even Zach Cregger, the director, said there's not one surefire meaning for it. I mean, I don't think it's that deep of a thing in my personal opinion. I think it's just meant to represent what the kids are being used for is a weapon. And then we get to Alex's part in the movie, where this is kind of like what I talked about earlier with those parallels between, adults and kids, where a lot of, if not all, the relationships between adults and kids are viewed as very taboo, especially if it's a stranger, But I think the point this movie's trying to make with the example of those kinds of relationships is by showing, since everyone's, so worried about teacher and student, how interpersonal those can be, not a lot of people look towards what happens at home, what happens behind closed doors. And we see, how kids are meant to trust them, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And we see how those aren't looked towards as often, just because, family, we're essentially told that we can trust family, We see how in this movie, not always, not always. Sometimes the relationship with our family is a lot more harmful to kids than it is with, let's say, their teacher or a friend or something like that. And I think this last little part with Alex really showcases that in just true colors. And it's really disheartening to see what Alex has to go through as, Aunt Gladys is, she brings all the kids in for like her nefarious plot, and she makes Alex feed him, even the ones that like bullied him, and it really just like is, the core of this disgusting, disturbing event, and how people get off on just manipulating and abusing kids like that. But we see in the final act that as Archer and Justine make their way to Alex's house, essentially they find the kids in the basement, but Gladys sends manipulated Paul and James after them. Meanwhile, Alex is elsewhere in the house, and he finally gets his way to his parents, who have been manipulated by Gladys as well, and are now chasing him. He gets away from them long enough to get to like Gladys' little like ritual stick and do like the little like ritual on her, which causes all the kids from the basement chase after her and just go through all like the neighborhoods and like rip her all to shreds. It's honestly like such like a really like fun scene. It's hilarious that she's like running through the houses, she's like running through like the neighbor's house and yards, and it's like all the kids are like busting through the walls, and it's really cartoony, but I think it's like cartoony in a fun way. I think it's like truly like a genuine great ending. It's a dark one for sure, but it's fun dark. So what would you say you liked most about this movie?
Like crumble cookie, that my favorite.
That my favorite.
That my favorite. Every bit of this movie was my favorite. I loved it. I really, really loved this movie a lot. There are cons, but very enjoyable. Zach Cregger did it again.
We view certain like cinematography through the horror lens that Zach Cregger knows so well. We get like a few like POV shots, which leads to some really good jump scares. That and just like the practical effects, the acting, the writing, the story structure, the story pacing, all in my opinion are done to a T.
The soundtrack, the score, it's so haunting, it's so great. And like you said, like there are cons. I would say the only few cons I have is that throughout the movie there's like certain characters that get certain places that they're not supposed to. Like at one point, Justine, her car is entered by someone else, and it's like Justine's asleep in the scene, but I wouldn't think that she would leave her car door open. It seems weird to me.
That, and then the end when Gladys is like running through like all the neighbors' houses. It is cartoony and it is fun, but it's one of those things where it's like this many people, this many neighbors would just like leave their doors and gates and whatnot open. Like I just thought it was like really weird, but that's like really like the only few complaints I had with this movie. Oh, and the one of the, where the police and the investigators, they see where the kids, they like run off in the night from the Ring doorbell cameras. But it's like a huge plot hole that they can see the kids running off, but they can't through other neighbors see where they head to. And it's like, because they all go to Alex's house. Did they not see the kids like go through like Alex's front door, like through the neighborhood? Did they not, see through other neighbors' doorbell rings? I have no idea, but it's just like one of those like few plot holes that is fairly can be overlooked a fair bit. But what would you rate this movie out of 10?
9.
I would agree with you. It's a 9 out of 10. A few plot holes, but
The plot holes, for me, they can be overlooked. But my biggest one is, like I know Zach Cregger really does dark comedy, kind of like dark humor, but I wish it leaned a little more into its scary nature.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more. I'm not talking about like more jump scares. I wish the movie was, in your face scary.
Yeah.
I just wish there was an unsettling tone in the beginning of the film. And it was very creepy whenever Justine gets back from her house and it's dark and she's alone and she hears a knocking on the door and the doorbell ringing. That like, like what's out there? Like what's lurking in the darkness of this town?
But yeah, that was our review of Weapons. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Go form your own opinions. Leave a comment, like down below. But yeah, we're Late Night Movie Service. I'm Diego.
I'm Joaquin.
Have a good one, y'all.
Catch you later.